work has been done by the Gulati Institute of Finance and Taxation. Parallelly, a lot of work has been done by a drafting committee, which is appointed by the government. And that has also completed its work. And I suppose a lot of the ideas that Professor Joseph will be presenting today, that will again go into the final memorandum that is prepared by the drafting committee. So let us see. Let's, I think, straight away start with presentation by Professor Joseph, and we can talk about the various points that he has made.
Esteemed Professor Sri K. M. Chandrasekhar, respected Govindrao, I note the presence of a number of gift friends. Ole Tongist is over there. My colleagues, students, and of course, all the friends of gift who have joined for this seminar in the afternoon on our invitation. I have two jobs here, two jobs. I thought my coordinator will do, he has not done that. One is to welcome all of you, and second is to do my, I'm very happy that for the first time, I'm getting a chance to give a seminar. Otherwise, my job is always to welcome. So I will do the double job today in terms of welcoming. To begin with, we must say that this is a continuation of the last month's day-long workshop that my colleagues presented here under the overall guidance of Sri K. M. Chandrasekhar, former Cabinet Secretary and distinguished professor of our institute, and Professor M. Govindrao, the distinguished professor of our institute. And in that seminar, we were fortunate that each chapter was dealt critically examined by our friends from the Kerala Economic Association, particularly college teachers. And we were fortunate to have the presence and the critical views from Dr. Thomas Isaac and Sri R. Morgan. And in fact, we felt really privileged that that meeting was inaugurated by our esteemed chairman and the Honorable Finance Minister of the state. And that in that seminar, actually, we were dealing at length with what are the issues in vertical and horizontal devolution, along with the granting aid issues, dealing at length with decentralization, less privileged communities, and the disaster management front, so on and so forth. This seminar, I would rather see present it as setting the background for the overall, the first chapter of that report. That's what I'm going to say. And without much, can you please show the PowerPoint? I can't do it. Okay. I think I have a PowerPoint here. I'm normally a very indisciplined person. To begin with, I'm welcoming all of you for this meeting once again. And I know that Sri K. M. Chandrasekhar and all of you have to leave at the earliest. What I've done, and I'm going to do is, I'm going to read out my PowerPoint, which I hate doing, because I want to be within the time of 30, 35 minutes, beyond which none of you will tolerate me. So I'm going to, which I don't really like reading PowerPoint, because there are a lot of sub-stories in that, which those stories I may say when I get a chance to talk in the, if I get a chance to talk in the question and answer session. So, okay, now, the title of this session is India at 2047 and 15th Finance Commission, some reflections using the lens of states. You know, the last report was in terms of states and Finance Commission, reflections from the Kerala perspective. Now, I'm going to talk more from states, but of course, we being in GIFT and we being in Kerala, there will be so much of Kerala coming in. Then let me, by way of setting the stage, friends, you know that India explicitly declared the ambition of transforming India to become a developed economy by 2047, which is articulated by Niti Aayog as Vision India 2047. I think there is a lot of people don't believe in it, but I personally believe that it is important and inevitable to be ambitious in your personal life and professional life, and for institutions and for organizations. At the same time, you know that we are living in a world where, there is our manufacturing is not going up, but slogan production is going up very high. So slogans are important. It is important to be ambitious, but ambitions and slogans alone will not make a poor country rich. I mean to say that slogans has to be, or vision has to be backed by actions. And it is the job of the academic community who are fed by the people's tax money to articulate that action point. It is in this way I see this thought process that I'm going to present you. You know that at present, India is the fifth largest economy in the world and the fastest one fastest growing one in the world, and it has recorded a V-shaped recovery after the pandemic. By 2029, India is expected to overtake Germany and Japan to become the third largest economy in the world. At the same time, you should be aware that when you are overtaking Japan, Japan's per capita income will be of the order of over $40,000, and ours, you know that today ours is 2,256. As per the World Bank criteria, India, with a per capita income of 2,256, is a lower middle income country. The per capita income should cross 4,095 to join the middle income group and overcome the challenges of middle income trap that today's many of the middle income countries are faced with to become a high income country with a per capita income exceeding 12,695. Currently, in terms of per capita income, India's position is 42nd among 197 countries in the world.
Sorry, it must be 142.
In the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index, ranks one. Professor Gondrao sir?
It must be 142 among 197 countries. It is not 42. It's
Okay.
142 out of 197 countries.
Okay, I stand corrected. You're right. Maybe one digit has gone. You're right. Ranks 140 out of 156 in global gender gap. Rank in HDA is 132 out of 191, and SDG index, the rank is 121 out of 169. Professor Gondrao, whom who heard now, has recently presented in a gift discussion paper. He argued that the challenge of achieving such an aspirational target is daunting. In fact, my reflections are driven very much inspired by his working paper and the seminar which was presented in gift, which was in fact chaired by none other than our esteemed chairman of the day. According to Professor Govindrao, per capita income will have to increase by 5-fold to achieve $1,320,200. Hence, the country will have to register annual per capita income growth of 7.5% in the next 25 years. And GDP growth should be of the order of 9 to 10%. I'm optimistic again here because when I studied China, China is a country which recorded 9.6% growth rate sustained over a period of 40 years from 1978. And I have the experience of South Korea, which managed to join the rank of OECD countries within a matter of 25 years. So aiming high, there is nothing wrong in that. According to Professor Govindrao, growth will have to be inclusive to employ 2 million persons added every year to labor market, and those released from the agriculture and the unorganized sectors in more productive sectors. These objectives require substantial increase in investment from present level of 30 to 31% of the GDP to at least 40%, and significant increase in productivity gains such that your ICOR, incremental capital ratio, is reduced from the present level of 5%. Such a large increase in investment is not feasible through domestic savings alone, Professor Rao argues. He dealt at length with the whole lot of reforms that is required to accomplish this aim, including macroeconomic reform. To say the least, our destination is too far away, and the road ahead is rather rocky and curly, to say the least. Now, our chief minister turned prime minister, in my view, could not have been more committed, correct, articulate, and perceptive when he said, India grows when states grow, or India can be developed if and only if states become developed. And that essentially means that states have a key role in smoothening and straightening the rocky road ahead of us. Hence, if the states do matter in India's development, Finance Commission does matter in state development because on average, over 42%, 42% of the revenue receipts of the on average states come from the central government, which is contingent on to a great extent by what Finance Commission prescribes or recommends. This issue has not, then if the states are important, this issue in fact has not received the attention that it deserves. Often what we talk in the common parlance is Tamil Nadu contribute 80% to the central pool and they get only 5% in an accountant sense. Or Gujarat contributes too much, they get too less. And this is more of an accountant sense. And I would like to see that there is no reason, we have to go beyond this narrow view of the problematic. Dear friends, after the recent Nobel Prize declaration, it is now very well acknowledged across the world that institutions, I mean the rules, the laws, the customs, the traditions, the practices, and beliefs play an important role in shaping a country's development. In the case of states, there are endogenous institutions and exogenous institutions. And for the purpose of this discussion, I am dealing only with exogenous institutions. There are institutions which are within the state, which we can discuss and quarrel later. I am only concerned about exogenous institutions. And as far as Finance Commission is also, it's also governed by endogenous and exogenous institutions. It could be construed that what is endogenous to the state is exogenous to the Finance Commission. There is also an acknowledged fact within the literature which I am familiar with, in the innovation development literature, there is institutions need to co-evolve with the changing context because institutions are the creations of the context. As context change, they need to co-evolve. And if there is any inertia by the institutions to co-evolve, institutions themselves could be acting as inimical to the development process. Finance commissions in general in this country have been co-evolving and successful in accomplishing their constitutional mandates in a commendable manner, and that contributed significantly to whatever health India's fiscal federation today has. However, the context in which the Finance Commission came into being in 1951 is entirely different from what we are confronted with today. When Finance Commission came into being, they were formed. It was essentially concerned about ensuring provision of basic minimum public goods equitably across Indian states. In a country which was trying to address the basic development problems of inequality, or poverty, employment, etc., etc. And the public policy focus was entirely on that. But today, with Vision 2047, the task before the 16th Finance Commission is more challenging than its predecessors. It should address all the conventional concerns confronted by its predecessors, while the prevailing fiscal federal relations are presumably more precarious than ever before. You know that a state like Kerala has challenged the central government in the Supreme Court for upholding the borrowing rights. At the same time, it is the first Finance Commission after the country has embarked upon an ambitious vision, and the Prime Minister highlighted the role of states when the basic issues of development remain, despite being the fastest growing economy. The recommendation of the 15th Finance Commission, therefore, assumes added significance for the health of the Indian fiscal federalism on the one hand and achieving India's Vision 2047. In this background, the specific issues that this paper tries to answer are how to articulate the role of states in India's development beyond so-called accounting sense. How conducive is the fiscal federal relations as it evolved over time to enable states to accomplish this role? What are the key ingredients of the co-evolutionary process that the Finance Commission shall consider for making it relevant in accomplishing the vision of 2047 by harnessing the role of states? In answering all these questions, I have learned immensely from my esteemed colleagues. Particularly, I refer to Professor Gondarao and other eminent public finance scholars. I'm not a born public finance person. I'm just 5 years, just a fresh PhD in public finance at best. So take all what I say with as much criticism as possible. Now, how to articulate state development? Development of a quasi-federal India, a federation of holding together, which I'll come later, with the 28 states and 8 union territories as a system. For me, it's a system is contingent on the interactions between the key actors therein. These 3 key actors are the union, the state governments, of course, and union territories included, the people of the states and the union territories. When I talk about one state, I can think in terms of one state vis-a-vis other state as I go along. In a fiscal federal system, the institutional architecture of the states, along with their endowments, historical factors, and other things that decide their focus of activities in terms of and their specialization. Thus, I can divide the states into 2 broad categories. Type 1 states, those mainly specialize in the production of goods, including primary, secondary, and which are tradable. Type 2 states, they specialize in non-tradables like human capital. The tradables in general are taxable, though at varying degrees, agriculture has very less tax. And they add, I repeat, they add to the tax revenue of the type 1 states. Non-tradables like human capital are not taxable and non-tradable, then they do not contribute to the tax revenue of the type 2 states. I mean, can be complicated. We can say the GST regime and all. I'm not getting into that. We'll complicate. I mean, it doesn't, conclusion doesn't matter. Assume that for a pedagogical scaffolding, assume that we are talking in a pre-GST regime. Even if I include GST, things don't take much, which we'll take up later. Such specialization by each state could be construed as leading to differential contribution to the development of the people of the state concerned, its fiscal health, development of other states, and that of the fiscal health of the union. Let us take type 1 states. They're specializing in tradables, generate income for the people of the state, and thus contribute to the people's development. People are better off. The state government concerned get benefited as the tradables contribute to their tax revenue. These states provide taxes to the union and work towards the fiscal health of the union. By supplying goods to other states like machinery, from Maharashtra to Kerala, other states benefited because we are able to use their machinery and we are able to produce. So all the actors in the system are better off. Now the question is how much? That is something which we have to, if you believe in it, we have to really articulate, we have to estimate. That's an empirical question. I'm only posing it as a research question. Now, coming to the type 2 states, they specialize in non-tradables, human capital, which are not saleable. As they are mobile, they migrate to other countries and other states in the country. Those migrate abroad, get better position there, get a salary, and they contribute to their family income, that is remittances, and therefore the people of the type 2 states are better off. You know it. Since those migrate abroad, make remittances in foreign exchange in the union is also better off. Human capital that migrate to other states contribute to the development of those states, hence other states are also better off. Now, what about the state governments of the type 2 states? They obviously are worse off because while they invest heavily in the production of human capital, which is export oriented by borrowing, they are not entitled to any tax from this. Instead of human capital, if they produced machinery, physical capital, they would have got tax. All the actors are better off except state government in the type 2 states. Even the vision, India 2047, a more nuanced understanding of the role of different states could play indeed in accomplishing, because this is quite understandable from here. Now, when we talk about, now I'm going to take a case study of Kerala here. Let me have a little more nuanced view of, a different view of Kerala model. I mean, because this is actually based on my P.K. Govalash memorial lecture in the last Kerala Science Congress. I'll just briefly, as a footnote, it may be used later or otherwise, discussion. Kerala model is something more than higher human capital development indicators with low per capita income. We know that it is higher human development indicators with low per capita income. I would say that it is through public action. It's something more than that. It is there, it is correct, but something more than that. From the innovation system perspective, development comes from innovation. When you take the case of Kerala, we have Professor Isaac and Professor Michael Tharagan and others have talked about social reform movements in Kerala start from the 1850 onwards, Sri Narayana Guru, Chattambi Swamigal, so on and so forth. And it is preceded by the missionaries' work. And followed later, you find the public action more effectively. Of course, the Maharaja of Kerala was always benevolent. We know that. So public action came with the social background. That I would like to call it as the foundation for Kerala's development was laid by social and governance innovation, S&G innovation. But there are limits from the development, the innovation development literature. It's evident that there are limits beyond which you can't go beyond a certain level with this kind of innovation. And Kerala has reached that limit by around circa 1970. Based on our understanding of the link between, we had to move to, India should have moved from this S and G trajectory to S and T trajectory, science and technology based trajectory. We have not succeeded enough in that. Of course, there were attempts. And economy could not reap the full growth potential because of that. GDP growth in India since 1991 was actually, my dear friends, marginally though, lower than all India average. This is not a point that any Keralites can be proud of. Science, technology, innovation policy, I would attribute quite a role to the exogenous factors of science and technology policy, which it's not the forum to discuss that. But for the first time, 2013, Science, Technology, Innovation Policy articulated the role of regional innovation councils at the state level. Kerala immediately jumped onto that. Kerala established the State Innovation Council. Of course, I don't think that it has been very vibrant. But later, these regional innovation councils was closed by all the states. And Kerala rechristened it in the name KDISC, Kerala Strategic Development Innovation Council. And they are actually today playing an important role. And we had to wait till 21-22 budget of Dr. Thomas Isaac to explicitly articulate transforming Kerala to a knowledge economy, highlighting the role of innovation. So we missed the bus quite a lot. This background is also to be reckoned with. Now, coming back to our perspective. Kerala model is what? Kerala model is an export-oriented human capital production. When by type 1, type 2 parity is nothing but an export-oriented human capital production. A part of the human capital migrated to other countries and equal number migrated to other states. As per Kerala Migration Survey of our institute done by our honorary fellow, Professor Rajan. Today, 2.2 million Keralites are working in 183 out of 197 countries in the world. And they contribute something like 23% of the total remittance to India and highest by any state in the country. 2.7% of the population contributing 23% of the remittance to the country is something remarkable. Studies have also shown, I'm referring to my study with Ken Hellel and me, saying that while people migrated to other states, migration has led to resource movement effect, and their remittances have led to spending effect. The spending effect and the resource movement effect within the framework of Dutch disease has contributed towards reduced growth or depressing the productive sectors of the economy. That means to say that when Kerala, while bringing foreign exchange to the union, has had to bear with the resource movement effect and spending effect and depressed the productive sectors, it contributed to the union. Union is made better off at least in the following ways. One, improving the current account balance of the country, building the foreign exchange reserves, and of course, by raising the pride of the country among the Committee of Nations, because our rank in HDI, our rank in SDG, our rank in what is called IMA, infant mortality rate, our performance in longevity, these are all comparable to developed countries. This is actually a plus point for the state. While India's trade policy has, now my dear friends, remember, when you talk about India's trade policy regime, India's trade policy has numerous provisions for direct and indirect subsidies for export earning. Now, whether Kerala's human capital oriented, as an export oriented human capital for export earning has ever got any concession from the central government? Any subsidies from the central government? It was at the instance of the state government incurring substantial public expenditure in the PPP mode. Almost 30 years ago, before the central government started thinking about PPP, we have been thinking about PPP in the state, in the education sector. Today, about 57% of Kerala's revenue receipts is on salary and wages and pension, of which 60% is for the teachers. Kerala model added fiscal stress to Kerala. Thus, the export-oriented human capital development strategy made hardly any direct contribution to the tax revenue of the state, direct contribution to revenue, and thus contributed to the debt burden which you see today to the state, and the Kerala government was worse off. This is the reason why Kerala should be provided with. This is the reason why I believe, in fact, I don't want to quote anyone. This is the reason why Kerala has been provided with the revenue deficit grant. And 16th Finance Commission cannot take a different route in this direction unless they have a different reasoning for that. When it comes to people of Kerala, they definitely, undoubtedly, they became rich, big houses, 4,000 square feet house and a dog in everywhere. That's what Ridharajan says. Our consumption increased. Professor Kannan argued elaborately on this and others. Now, Kerala and other states. Kerala exported human capital to other states and estimated 2 million. They are nurses, they are doctors, they are teachers, they are lawyers, and even one of the members of the Finance Commission is a Malayali. In the current world wherein knowledge is the most important resource, human capital and knowledge, human capital which embodies knowledge has gone from Kerala to other states, and naturally it has contributed to the development of other states. And of late, Kerala emerged as a major importer of labor. We export human capital and we import labor, and that indeed contribute to the development of other states. Of course, we have got a lot of fiscal complaints saying that they don't consume anything here, they don't pay any tax, when they eat only rice and fish, which is non-taxable, they don't even buy a bicycle, etc. These are our fiscal complaints against our guest workers. Anyway, that is not the forum to discuss that. So the point is that other states benefited from Kerala model, and of course, union. Now, the Kerala, to sum up, what is that? The Kerala model is one that made the union better off, other states better off, people of Kerala better off, but government of Kerala worse off. Yet, it is having an outstanding human development outcomes. That's the true engine. If you really mean it, the true engine of Vision 2047 is Kerala. Without which the Vision 2047 that may not take off. So you have to better support Kerala and Kerala-like states. I will articulate each other states to articulate like this, and you have. Now the question which we ask ourselves, have we ever articulated this dimension of Kerala in the development of the country before Finance Commission or anybody ever before? I don't know. Instead, we said that we are competent of producing high development outcomes without any income. No income, we don't need any income. We are competent of producing high developmental outcomes. Perhaps Finance Commission would have thought, these are very smart people, no new money is no need to be given, because if without income they can produce very high outcome. So let them produce. Let us go to other states. They are poor. They don't have any capability. So that's understandable. Again, my dear friends, given the Vision 2047, union needs to be made to recognize Kerala's role in accomplishing national vision sooner than later through the 16th Finance Commission. Now, where is Kerala standing with all this? When you took up, we are taking after the, if you take, so for example, after the pandemic, Kerala in terms of own tax revenue as a proportion of revenue receipts, when we have got 56% in the latest year on average, Kerala it is 65%. Own revenue as a percentage of total revenue receipts, Kerala it is 64, as Kerala it is 79, all state it is way below 64. And in terms of debt deficits, Kerala, I would say, recovered. National level, we talk about V-shaped recovery. We have a tick-shaped recovery. Look at this. Our fiscal deficit, as per the FRBM, should have been 4.5 in 2021 and 22. It was only 3.99. Next year, we could have gone for 4%, only 2.44. And the last year, 3.5, we start 2.92. In all indicators, we have been complying with fiscal stabilization, rationalization, discipline, but it is actually a perilous discipline. In fact, the minister, our own minister recently said that something like 76% of your borrowing is going for paying interest. And you know that people are not, this discipline is achieved for the central government because they don't allow you to borrow, because not by paying DA to the government employees. This is a perilous, this is a very perilous discipline, which is imposed upon us by being a part of India, to which development, whose development we contribute enormously. This is what we get back. Now finally, to sum up this section, And any inquiry into the present fiscal stress of Kerala will therefore lead us to the doorsteps of India's failure to be cognizant of the reality wherein states contribute differently to national development with its implications on their own fiscal health. Again, I repeat, no better rationale is needed for the 15th Finance Commission to provide revenue deficit grant for the state of Kerala. There is the need for a more realistic articulation of the role of states in accomplishing Vision 2047 if you are serious about it. Go beyond the conventional state development reports. One can think in terms of a state level development index. Niti Aayog may consider that if it is truly want to practice what they preach. Given our Vision 2047, I would like to argue that we need the strategy should be one of rewarding the performance. At least don't penalize. While hand-holding the laggards, equity is important. Perhaps it is high time to reflect on the relevance of a paradigm shift from always carrot. Our policy has been of always carrot and can be think in terms of a policy of carrot and sticks. Now, the question is, how conducive is the fiscal federal relations? 10 minutes left. I'll finish soon. How conducive is the fiscal federal relations that evolved over time? You know, fiscal federal, we are all familiar. Where did this fiscal federalism India came from? It came from in Government of India Act of 1919 and Government of India Act of 1935. These were quintessentially not, I don't think that they were development oriented. They were the ones which were designed by a colonial government to keep their colonies under subjugation. And if that development orientation was not there in the seeds from which India's fiscal federalism like plant came up, you researchers should explore whether fiscal federalism as it practiced in India has got any deficit in development orientation. It is the job of the new generation to explore. We have the division of responsibilities between, principle of subsidiarity, but it is what actually this we have shown is that Indian fiscal federalism is characterized by congenital by birth inequality. And now this has been very well elaborated by 15th Finance Commission, which everybody now it is almost a by heart sentence for everyone knowing public finance. In India, states account for 62% of the expenditure with total entitlement of 37% of the revenue. That means state finance ministers have only two options. One, to steal or to borrow. Borrow they won't permit. Then I don't know what is the other option. While the state, now, for achieving the Vision 2047, by harnessing the role of states, the share of states in the divisible pool, therefore, must increase at least to 50%. The share, and my colleagues have articulated much more elaborate reasons for that. I just want to make some. The share of surcharges should be freezed. You should not be increased. I'll come back to it later, which we already said about it, because our share has been increased from 31% to 31% to 32% to 42%, then to 41%. But actually, what you get is 29-30%. What is the direction of now? The question is, we talk about cooperative federalism. What is the cooperative federalism we are talking about? Our cooperative federalism has been articulated in terms of cooperation between union and the states. Understandable. Because when federalism was evolved, states never had any capability. So it was one of cooperation, new cooperative centers so to get ideas. But we know that over time in this country, states have built up enormous capabilities, and many of the programs that the center religiously implement from the union are the ones conceived by, designed by, implemented by, proven by the states. So I would like to say that when you are talking about 2047 vision, you need to articulate cooperative federalism both in terms of vertical cooperation and horizontal cooperation among states. When we are in Kerala struggling to clean up the cities, you go to MP in Indore, a cleanest city in the country. You should see how are they able to do it. And in terms of our achievements in decentralization, there is no much in the country. And why not the Finance Commission articulate a new paradigm when they are operating in this new in the challenge of 2047 vision. Now, of course, you may say that, okay, look, this is north-south. I would say the north-south divide is becoming very, very dangerous now. That can be very dangerous. So they will say that now you have political party differences. But then, being an apolitical, being an academicians group, they should articulate saying that when it comes to development, you should be able to keep apart the political differences. Of course, they may say it is possible, but just like Vision 2047, that's also not very much possible. This will be, once you say, it may happen today or tomorrow, but it's the role of the Finance Commission to articulate the cooperative federalism in a most appropriate manner. It has been now coming to the, for example, where does it in terms of the key ingredients of India's fiscal federalism? You know, we have our colleagues, Lekha Chakravarti and others. I'm using the word fiscal federalism at the crossroads. It is her own article. They have argued that it is at crossroads because of various reasons. You know, what are the key ingredients of those change? First is the liberal policy reform. I can talk another 1 hour about that. To say the least, according to Subramanian and Rani Roderick, it is from a shift from pro-business to pro-market. That is India's globalization. It's made the states in chain. When it comes to borrowing, states got through numerous restrictions. But what about private sector borrowing? You should learn. I don't think that there is any restriction. So if our private sector borrow, it will not cause any destabilization, looks like. Now, when you are talking about the constitutional amendments, you have a situation like Hasib Dawood argued that you have a states hitting the state, the union hitting the states from front, and the local self-governments nibbling from behind. So they are pressed from both sides. FRBM might. This is 3% what is called. I will deal with it a little later. Now, abolition of finance commission, abolition of planning commission, and the importance of the prominence of centrally sponsored programs. And in fact, one of the planning commission members himself, whom I respect a lot, Dr. Ajay Ranjan Jha and Pinaki Chakravarti, has articulated very well what are the issues with centrally sponsored programs. And introduction of GST with great expectations. You know, I mean, we take pride that we have developed a paradigm of our own, as Professor Gondra was rightly said earlier in our first Gulati Memorial lecture. But he himself, we are all aware that we have a long way to go. More reforms are needed. Now let us take the FRBM and all these. Now, what is FRBM? FRBM is trying to, and how FRBM is in sync with the vision. That's my point here. It aims to reduce revenue deficit to 0 and fiscal deficit to 3%. Now, the question I want to ask is, how relevant is it for a developing economy context? You know, according to Richard Nelson, you know, I personally have some relationship with him. You know, he's one of the founders of our network. According to him, in 56, he argued a country is poor because it has low income leading to low saving leading to low investment leading to low income. Without investment, no income. Suppose somebody can find out new way of producing income and growth without investment, he might get a Nobel Prize, which is yet to come. Now, Professor Gondrao himself argued that we need to raise our investment from 30% to 40%. Somebody will say that, okay, why don't you ask your FDI people to do it? No, I can. That's not a very viable strategy. And without FDI, now the key question is, now my doubt is, once your revenue deficit is 0, okay, what is the economic logic of arguing that you should not more than 3%? If I can ensure that every rupee that I borrow is invested in such a manner that return from it is higher than the interest that I pay, that means net I am gaining, why you should fix this 3% cap on the borrowing and investment? That means you are keeping a cap on the investment. That is not. And what matters, therefore, is not the amount of borrowing, but the utilization of borrowed money. Hence, in the context of the Vision 2047, the 16th FC shall ensure that the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act is transformed to what is more appropriate. I call it as Fiscal Responsibility and Borrowing Management Act. You can borrow any money, no problem. And that should be used in such a way that it earns returns more than. And how your money is used, that does matter. In the world of IT, in the world of artificial intelligence, Our union government is smart enough to monitor each and every paise that the union state government is spending. So we should be thinking ahead of that. Now the question is, what are the key? I'll finish it now. 30, how many minutes now? Yeah. Only 5 more minutes, I'll finish. What are the key ingredients of the change that the Finance Commission should talk about? I already said about FRBM problem. We have talked about a whole lot of other things earlier. Now, what I'm going to come more specifically to, this is actually the core concern of the previous report that we already submitted and presented here that my colleagues have dealt at length here. Now, what we are saying is that the criteria are evolved in an altogether different context. It doesn't fit in the current context. And they have got inherent limitations as well. And we have got, say, for example, 6 criteria given here. Income disparities, 45%. Population, 15%. Area, 15%. Demographic performance, 12.5%. Forest and ecology, 10%. And 2.5% tax performance, whatever it is. So, something like 70%, 45 plus 30, next to 70% is working against Kerala. Point number 1. We have a high income, so you get less. We performed very well in population, you get less. You have a small country, you are a small state, you get less. So all are working against Kerala. But we want to take at least, what are the fallacy, what are the problematic with this criteria? We will just take only with one, which I worked with Dr. Kiran. Okay, now the point is here. As a result of this, we are actually leading a situation of penalizing performance. The southern states got something like 24%. Of the total divisible pool in 95, 200, 2000, today their share, last finance commission, is only 15.8%. And for Kerala, we all know, almost half, it is 3.8% to 1.9%. The largest hit was by us, and of course, our poor Andhra Pradesh also were along with us, from 8% to 4%, still they have a higher share anyway. Now, the point which I want, what is our quarrel with this criteria? Finance Commission has given 15% weight. We have already shown this graph. Kerala share has declined. Now, let me just, what is the quarrel with this criteria? If you look at the performance of the states, I already presented here. I don't want to bore you people with it. You find that higher income states, the tax GDSDP declines. The basic presumption is here that if your income is high, your people are rich. Your people can pay high tax. Using that high tax, we can provide the basic minimum public goods. That is why high-income countries, states are paid low tax. But we know that higher the income, you go by this blue curve, higher your, if you look at the income of the high-income countries, the high-income states, their share has been steadily declining. And that of the low-income states, their tax GDP ratio has been going up and is almost stable for the middle-income countries. How to account for that? And in fact, people, I mean, I don't want to finish. Now, what I want to say is that this actually doesn't take into account the structural change in the economy. In 1980s, Kerala had 12% of the GSDP coming as taxes. At that time, Kerala's share in service sector was just 40%. And today it is 67%. The growing segment of the economy is not taxed by the state government, that is taken by the central government. But having said this, I must also say that our service sector is small, petty kadas and all. They grow in service sector, but they don't contribute much also. Another point is that if your service sector and your economy is export oriented, you won't get tax. So much so that you get this graph saying that across Indian states, a perfect inverse relationship between tax, structural change, increase in the share, change in the share of service GSDP and change in your tax GSDP ratio. Karnataka has the highest on the rock bottom right down here because they are a service sector software state and they are an exporter state. So now there are a few other issues in vertical devolution. Quite a lot is talked about. There is a high talk that from 13th to 14th Finance Commission, our share has increased and 15th only declined by 1% because of Jammu and Kashmir, etc., etc. But actually what we get as a proportion is not, there is a big slip between the cup and the lip. So because a large proportion of that is taken away by the union government in the form of cess and surcharges. So it is very important that you need to ensure, first of all, the share should increase. at least 50%, and please ensure that what is given is, what is declared is given. And again, there are a lot of issues in FC granting aid concerns. If you look at, say, for example, one welcome trend is that the total transfer that they get, FC grant is unconditional. You have the freedom to use whichever way you want. That has been increasing 9% or more than doubled. My colleagues have already worked it out today. I think actually came in the newspaper in a big way. And but the unwelcome trend here is that when you are talking about when you talk about the conditional grants, that's almost 68% to 82%. So more money is coming by way of conditional grants, and FC grants to total grants, the unconditional grants to total grants, that is steadily declining from 31% to. So the point is that cooperative federalism is something like becoming a kind of subordinated or coercive federalism. I don't know if these words are correct or not, but I'm saying that this is not a very, very good cooperative federalism if you want to become a developed economy by 2047. Now, we have some recommendations out here. I'm not going to say about the changes in the centrally sponsored schemes and all that. I already said, people of eminence and including our finance commission member has articulated. This is very important. Now, about the granting aid, very important thing is that I told you that we have to reduce your ICOR from 5%. Incremental capital output ratio can be reduced only by increasing your efficiency, productivity, etc., etc. That is possible only through innovation. And in this country, in 1990, India and China were spending more or less the same amount by way of same ratio of the GDP by way of R&D. 1990. Today, they spend almost 2.4% of their GDP. India from 8%, 0.8%, it has declined to 0.64%. And I'm not saying that Finance Commission should solve all the problems in the world. I'm not saying that. But these are matters that we should consider when you're giving, anyway, some grant in aid is paid. And Kerala is the first state in the country to come up with an R&D budget. 2 years ago, the second edition has been also out, wherein we found that we spend with a lot of effort, we could come up to 0.03% of the GDP is KGSDP spent on R&D. That should be at least raised to, in fact, our esteemed chairman has written a very elaborate piece in Indian Express on this. We need to do that. These are all matters that Finance Commission, of course, they may not be directly in their mandate, but when they're distributing their. So by way of conclusion, I don't know whether I should take again to sum up what I said. If I give 2 minutes, I'll finish that. Can I take 2 more minutes? Okay. India envisages to be a developed country, that is the Vision 2047 articulated by Niti Aayog. While having a vision is very important, but vision per se will not make a poor country rich. It has to be backed by. This is the basic premise on which we. And we said also that institutions are very important, that the institutions need to co-evolve. And states have an important role in Indian development. And we need to articulate what are the roles of different states. And you have to promote states which have the higher potential for contributing to the vision, should be given a better deal. Kerala model turned out to be a model that made the union better off, other states better off, people of Kerala better off, while making Kerala government worse off. And this is the rationale that we should uphold for providing the state with continued fiscal deficit grant, revenue deficit grant. Division 204 calls for, I would say, working on a two-leg strategy, while hand-holding the laggards. So far, our strategy has been hand-holding the laggards. I don't want to discard that because equity is important. At the same time, we need to promote performers, at least not punish the performers. Again, I said, I would even argue, going by South Korean and other countries' experience, the policy should be not one of only carrots alone. You should think in terms of both carrots and the stick. The stick can be very small, not a very big one to begin with. If states matter in India's development, Finance Commission does matter for states' development. But the fiscal federal architecture within which both states operate and the rules and the laws governing the functioning of the Finance Commission must co-evolve to the context. There is significant deficit that we find therein, and they could, in the presence of such deficit, they could emerge themselves as inimical to development. And see, any actions against, the point is that anybody standing in the way of achieving Vision 2047, the new generation will not tolerate, because it is their future at stake. Okay, so you have no right to talk against Vision 2047. So some of the key pillars of our fiscal federalism, like FRBM Act, are, in my view, not in sync with Vision 2047 and in sync with aspirations of catching up of a developing economy. Given our vision, we make the case for a fiscal responsibility and borrowing management act. So there won't be any quarrel. FRBM, then. Only thing is you are just changing the one budget management with borrowing man. That's all. The act will remain the same, which is not in sync with the development-oriented fiscal federalism. The share of states should be raised from 41% to at least 50% given the vision and the role of states therein. We need to ensure that what is offered by the FC, Finance Commission, or not offered, recommended by they never offer, or recommended by the Finance Commission reaches the states. Cess and surcharges needs to be freezed at certain level. There's an urgent need for revisiting the criteria used for horizontal devolution, at least for two reasons. They are not very much in cognizant of the changed context. They were evolved at a different context, and they are not in sync with the Vision 2047. The share of conditional grants may also be reduced so that states have got more freedom in deciding. They are also, please remember, they are also elected by people. They are also independent governments, and many of them are much bigger than many countries in the world. So we should respect them. They command more respect. Okay, I will stop here. Thank you very much for your kind, patient listening.
Thank you very much. I think Professor Joseph made one important point. He said that Kerala has contributed to the country through export of human capital. And for that, there was a sacrifice in terms of increased investment in education, health, and similar sectors. Now, this has resulted in a fiscal stress, which should be recognized and paid for through revenue deficit grants. That's what you said. Now, we have been talking a lot about 2047. India should be a developed economy. And by developed economy, we are talking about $35 trillion, is it?
Yeah,
$35 trillion.
30 trillion.
Huh?
30 trillion.
What
Which is 30 trillion, no? Am I right? 30?
It would be about a little more than $30 trillion. Yeah.
Okay, $30
Capital,
trillion.
yeah.
Now, is it an index? Is it a sign of prosperity if out of this $30 trillion, about $29 trillion are concentrated in a few hands of the very rich, and the rest $1 trillion is shared among all the people? Now, is that the kind of growth? I mean, I really feel that our focus on per capita income, on GST, on GDP levels, etc., that is taking us into a wrong direction. Kerala, as he correctly pointed out, has taken a different route. We have spent a lot of money on certain factors like education, health, etc. And I really feel that the Finance Commission should look at this aspect, because probably we have spent our money more efficiently than other states. Now, if you look at the distribution, the vertical devolution, almost 60–70% of the finances of the center, of the central government, and of the resources available with the center, that goes to a few states, because basically you're depending only on population, on per capita income. All of them lead to the same set of states getting it. How have they spent this amount, and how has Kerala spent this amount? And who has been more efficient in spending this amount? I think this efficiency needs to be really presented in an effective fashion to make the finance, not only with the finance commission, but with the whole country actually, so that you know what really the Kerala model has done and what pressures the Kerala model is now facing on because of that. Now it's the same kind of thing which is going to happen with your delimitation also when it comes in 2026. Now Kerala has been extremely efficient in family planning. We took the Government of India strategy and we implemented it with full force, with the result that when the delimitation happens, if it happens in parliamentary delimitation, happens in 2026, our political influence will diminish. Now, Chandrababu Naidu, based on this thing, he has already said, children, you produce more children. That is his strategy. Now, we are following certain principles which have been laid down actually by the Government of India, and we are following it better than other states. But do we get punished for that? That's the critical factor that we need to look into. Now, I think, what the people know? Okay, we start with my great friend, Mr. Professor M. Govindarao.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this kind invitation. In fact, Dr. Joseph has been calling me, saying that I will send you the PowerPoint today and tomorrow, and finally it came a couple of hours ago. So I'm not going to be making a very systematic sort of a presentation, but sort of some quick remarks on the things that he had said. Well, let me start with the point which, I mean, every state has to has to present its case. Let me put it this way. No, to the extent that so every state has to, they have to basically impress upon the Finance Commission that their requirements is much more important than others, and then they have to get more. Their requirement is much more important than that of the union government, and their requirement is much more important than other states, and they have to do more. But in doing so, my only request is be internally consistent. Because, you can't be really sort of saying things on which they can find fault. And, at least internally, logically consistent way you should proceed. That's one of the overall things. Let me start with your point about vertical devolution. No, what about fiscal deficit? Irrespective of whether the terms of reference require the Finance Commission to deal with the whole question of fiscal sustainability, they have to really work out what is the fiscal space available for distribution between the union and the states. Now, in doing so, you did elaborate on the fact that so long as you are using the money productively, you can be allowed to borrow. At the union level, you know very well that, according to the theory of fiscal federalism, the predominant responsibility for macroeconomic stabilization lies with the union government. And they can't have one rule for you and another rule for somebody else. And it is impossible to find out whether a particular, when you borrow more, whether you are using it for creating another public enterprise, which will end up with losses, or whether you are really doing for this thing. So there are issues of that nature. In any case, I don't want to deal with that. So, the point simply is that so long as the debt to GDP ratio declines, you can go about borrowing. Now, the question is, I mean, debt to GDP ratio can decline for a variety of reasons. But as far as the state is concerned, and that is very important, because as far as the state is concerned, even though the stabilization is a union government function, as far as the state is concerned, the volume of interest payment will increase if the debt accumulates. So it is important for the state to see and examine its own some of the expenditure policies. I don't think Kerala government should run the Muscat Hotel right in the heart of Trivandrum city. You can get rid of that and then actually retire your debt. That is certainly not a productive way of spending money. I mean, if I were in the Finance Commission, I would have asked that particular question. So there are ways where you can actually reduce the debt by, and then this Muscat Hotel doesn't even get into the requirement of the state government. I mean, that's what the problem is. But anyway, I'm just making this point. In principle, I agree that so long as you reduce the debt to GDP ratio, GSDP ratio, it is fine. But then it is not going to be easy for a union government to have a different set of rules. And if they are able to find some ways of doing that, it's better. It's good. And as far as the revenue deficit and fiscal deficit issue is concerned, union government itself has given up the revenue deficit goal. Now, I don't think union government will insist on you that you should also have a revenue deficit goal. When the union government itself has dispensed with the revenue deficit goal and has only the fiscal deficit goal, they can't force the state government to say that you also have to have both revenue deficit and fiscal deficit goal. But it is better for the state itself from the point of view of containing the interest payment expenditure to ensure that the debt GSDP ratio does not go up. I mean, this is important. This is an important issue that you need to do. And that is why I want to, I mean, that's an issue on which the Finance Commission is likely to take a thing. Now, second thing that I want to talk about is the Kerala model of development. Now, and I mean, it is, one of the things which Dr. Gulati used to say, Kerala was globalized but before any other state of the country. That's partly because of the endowment of the fact that you have a very high density of population. And when you have a very high density of population, there are certain areas where the cost of providing public services will be higher, because land cost will be higher. And in the case of Kerala, now even the labor cost is higher. Because, so in a situation like that, so obviously they have to take into account both land, it's not just the issue of population, but the cost of providing public service or the density of population is also an important issue that one has to talk about. But from the point of view of Kerala model of development, just as you claim that there is a huge amount of remittances that you get to 2.7% or whatever is the case, now they will ask a question. If so, there is so much of a remittance, your tax revenue should be higher, because this remittance will be used for consumption. I mean, in other words, the per capita income that you take does not take into account, it's a domestic product. It doesn't take into account the net factor income from outside the state. And if you say that, I want to consider net factor income from outside the state, there is also so that's why I said you need to be internally consistent. Then they will say that, look, why are you not collecting more taxes? Your argument, on the other hand, is basically, instead of going that route, your argument will have to be saying that per capita income is not an indicator of taxable capacity. State taxes are predominantly consumption-based. Marginal propensity to consume is less than 1, which basically implies that with increase in consumption, increase in incomes, consumption will not increase. And there is a considerable amount of money that goes by way of exports. Exports are zero rated. And therefore, per capita income cannot be considered as an important, as an indicator of taxable capacity. Either you directly estimate the taxable capacity, otherwise you need to substantially reduce weight on per capita income if you don't have a choice. Now, I mean, I would say that your argument will have to go in that way. Now, but I mean, on the other hand, as I said, you also need to take into account the higher cost of providing public services because of the higher density of population and the cost of this thing. Now, I have a problem with this word cooperative federalism, which you have used so many times. I would request you to look at yesterday's sort of column in which I have sent it to you. There is no cooperative federalism in the world. If there is if there is a forcibly this thing, that's a coercion. And during the plan era, there was a lot of cooperation, but then, centralized planning is negation of federalism. Now you have, you are given the choice. If you are given the choice of allocating resources according to your own preferences, then that must be respected. That's the reason why you should not really bother about the revenue deficit. You should only bother about the overall, borrowing ceiling, to the extent that so long as borrowing is done for good purposes, or sort of productive purposes, I still will say you can argue saying that we should be allowed to borrow. That's this thing. But then don't try to come up and say that you are revenue deficit. Now, as far as the revenue deficit grants are concerned, obviously you can say that balancing is an important factor. There is one other thing that I want to say. Sort of whenever you say that penalizing performance, tell me performance of what? Finance Commission grant does not lead to growth rate, impact on the growth rates. Because Finance Commission does not determine the borrowings. In fact, I would put the thing, turn around and say, poorer states have been, by virtue of having low per capita incomes, cannot borrow more than 3% of GSDP, their GSDP, which is much low. And they cannot provide the infrastructure with that 3% GSDP, whereas you can. And therefore, they cannot provide the infrastructure because they are not allowed to borrow, because one size fits all rule falls into them. Then they are not allowed to borrow. Their growth rate will not. They are not able to make the required volume of investment. They can't do this thing. Now the government the union government, by virtue of the fact that it has the responsibility for macroeconomic stabilization, has to balance between the repayment capacity of an institution of the state and the requirement of the state, and therefore they have been given that. So I don't think from here you can link the performance in terms of the growth rates with the Finance Commission's share of the Finance Commission. This is because growth rate depends upon a variety of factors. Investment is only one of them, and the Finance Commission does not contribute to the investment. It is only looking at the revenue account. Now, you can say that provision of public services does add to this. Yes, it is one of the factors, but not entirely. So, well, obviously, you say that because of the Kerala strategy, other states benefit, the country benefits, and it is true that country benefits, other states benefit, and you also benefit. And on the issue of the point which Honorable Chairman raised, that just on the basis of the income, you can't say it's a growth. Now, that is one of the reasons why in the article that I wrote and the presentation you made when you were chairing that, I said employment creation is the most important thing. It's not just enough to talk about incomes. And you also need to provide employment. I told a minimum of 2 million, which is not really true. It could, actually, the numbers vary from new entrants to the workforce varies from 4 million to 12 million. And top of it, you have 44% million people, percent of the people in workforce in agriculture. which produces only 15% of income. So I'd suggest that you need to really look at these issues. And, I mean, as far as the Finance Commission is concerned, there is no cooperation coming there. Basically, everybody is competing for the same fiscal space. Center is competing with the states for the same fiscal space. Each state is competing with another for the same fiscal space. So obviously, you have to make your case quite strong. And obviously, and then of course, cooperation doesn't happen just like that. If the cooperation can happen, if the parties can gain. If one party gains and the other party loses, the gaining party has to bribe the losing party. Then only the change can happen. Now, this I am also not very comfortable with your tradable and non-tradable sort of a thing. As I said, when you say that because of the entire thing, the state is not able to produce, manufacturing output because of the type of strategy that is followed. Now, then I will say that, then after all, you have a GST. Why not collect revenue from taxes on services? I mean, at the end of the day, when you have more, more focus on human development and all that, service sector will have to, have this thing. There is one final point I want to make on the tax effort that you're talking about. Just have a look, trace this particular thing. If you take, earlier when you were talking about a high taxable tax effort in Kerala and Karnataka and these, you had a 204 base per capita income with the GSDP. And when they switched over to 211 GSDP, suddenly your GSDP just bloated up. In the case of Kerala, the difference for the same year was 22%. In 2011-12, if you compare the old, the old GSDP and the new GSDP, from the 2004 base GSDP and 2011 base GSDP in current prices, 2011 GSDP in current prices is 22% higher than the 2004 GSDP. Tax revenue didn't increase. Suddenly your tax GDP ratio came down. It's a, Finance Commission will say that, look, this is maybe because earlier calculation was not correct. Now, whatever be it, but the fact of the matter is, there is no way you can smoothen it. You can't smoothen it through a proportional adjustment method. So, but this is one of the important things that has happened. But even then, I would say that Kerala, as compared to its per capita income, sort of as a factor, tax effort is a much better factor, and possibly so one of the things that I would say is that you need to really argue for a lower weight given to per capita income, the income distance. And you need to say that you need to take into account the density of population, where the population matter with the density of population, because that's important for you. And the third thing is increase the weight for forest cover, because that is the one which will actually give, because you have a long stretch of Western Ghats. So I would say that these are some of the things that you need to really take note of. But as far as possible, sort of be logically consistent. I know that when preparing the memorandum, lots of arguments come in, but then this is what I would suggest.
Thank you very much. Is there any other speaker?
Yeah, no other speaker, but others will be should be open to floor for questions.
Okay.
Briefly,
if there is no other speaker, then we can invite the views of.
I just want to I'm not going to responding to Professor Rao, because first of all, I must thank you for asking someone to be a first respondent or a discussant on a paper without giving a paper is something cruel. In fact, as he said, I was telling that I'll tell you day for yesterday. Actually, I could manage it finish only by 1:30 today. So yeah, that's unfortunately my predicament. And I'm profusely thankful to you. You know that you are my guru, and all your suggestions are well taken. And a couple of the things
Joseph, the
you are
moment you say, I am your guru, I'm
you are
afraid. The next statement may be that dump the guru somewhere in the dustbin.
okay. No. The point is well, because you are the point you have said. In terms of per capita income, low overweight. I think that's what chairman also started with. Why mean per capita income? Why not? If Ambani takes 90% and rest is given, mean doesn't mean anything. You have to think in terms of whatever median or whatever it is. Now, a couple of points. Also, when after listening to you, I thought what came to my mind is the old generation physicians. The old generation physicians. New people, they need, suppose they want to prescribe a paracetamol for headache, they will have to go for so many scans, so many blood tests, so many all kinds of things. Previous generation physicians, when the patient enters the room, the physician knows what is it. This is what actually happened. Even without seeing my PowerPoint, you made very good sense of what I am going to speak. Thank you very much. Now, I think couple of things about the Kerala, when you say about the tradable, non-trade, couple of things. I think we will, when we come, we will discuss. That is better, I think. I think that we are penalized, sir. And today morning, there's a whole lot of reason to believe that our share has become halved. This is what I call it penalizing. Today morning, we were told that for our Wayanad people, no money. This is not a disaster at all. I was thinking, Honorable Prime Minister could have given that money which we spent for coming here to the people. That would have been enough. Anyway, so I think penalization is there. Little bit of fist is there. But cooperative federalism, I read your paper yesterday in Business Standard. So I'm actually visualizing a scenario wherein we should go beyond the nasty politics, which is very difficult for
there is a normative statement. We should, but we don't.
We don't. Yeah.
It's like a benevolent state. State is not benevolent. Let us understand that. The individual agents in the state basically maximize their own welfare rather than welfare of the people at large.
The point is that there should be scope for when you are talking about system.
Yeah, scope is there if both the parties are likely to gain. And there are instances where they are likely to gain. There are very few. These are very few.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you are competing with everybody. You want more investment at the cost of somebody else.
But at the
you want more economic activity at the cost of someone else.
There is room for cooperation. That's what we should be articulating. But
there should be.
There
is a difference between there should be and there is. That is the point I'm making.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, I understand you correctly now. I think I perfectly agree with you on this area issue because our own colleagues here, Gita is sitting here. They have studied the national highway project wherein they found that per kilometer cost at the all India level is 100 crore, whereas in Kerala it is 100 crore, and in Kerala per square kilometer cost all India 30 and Kerala it is 100, 3 times. And all this is the cost disadvantage that we talk about, despite being a small state. We have a lot of arguments we can make on that. And again, this FRBM, I know that you were a little bit of discomfort. But I would like to say that I'm not concerned about debt GDP ratio. I'm concerned about how much is your interest burden that goes out of your revenue receipts.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That is
the point I'm making.
Yeah,
debt GDP ratio, let the center bother about it.
I think then we are on the same. I think we should be.
I am not concerned about macroeconomic stabilization. That is a central function. I am worried about my own cost.
I think Rajachalaya in 2000, I was very impressed when he was given an interview to Business Standard in 2000, something like this. He was actually very much against this kind of. I thought he was. We are also in the same boat. So I think I should not be wasting time on answering to you. I must only thank you for your.
You don't have to answer me, but then
exactly.
you make a good case.
I have noted down these things. We'll take home and reflect further. I think the floor should be open for further discussion.
Okay, anyone else would like to speak here?
Online, sir. I think online
Online
first.
also.
That's what the people here says.
Okay, anyone online would like to contribute?
This is Professor Pushpa Trivedi. She is.
Yeah, hello. Can
Yeah.
you hear me?
We are hearing you. We are hearing you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. Actually, I just wanted to know, since you mentioned about the R&D expenditure of India and China, etc., we know that definitely China's R&D is at a much higher level than, what is there, what is the outcome in India. However, since you are dealing with this area, are there any substantive studies which indicate the expenditure and outcome in terms of R&D expenditure and R&D outcomes?
Done some work on it. I think it will be debating the discussion. I'll send you the paper.
Yeah. I understand because there was a mention of that. Just in case if you have some studies, etc., please let me know. Not necessarily now, but maybe through private conversations.
You said these three sentences. We have articulated this problematic in the Indian case in terms of STI mode of learning and using interacting or DUI mode of learning. That means experience-based learning and science-based learning. That's Indian case. And we put this thing in terms of, we argued that while China has got, very common sense. China cooked a growth rate of almost 9%, 68% or so with 46% saving rate. But we actually able to cook, our growth rate was very high with much lower saving rate. The point I'm trying to say that China has reached its peak of saving. You cannot increase beyond your saving rate beyond 45. But Kerala, as well for India, it was at the peak, it was 36. It has come down to 29, 30 now. Now it can even go up to 45. The question is, with the higher R&D,
yes,
there KL Krishna and others argued that their productivity growth is lower than India. Something very strange. I will send you that paper. Asian Productivity Council also said the same thing. So we put an explanation in terms of working. We'll send you that paper. I think we are deviating.
See why I raise this question, because R&D expenditure, as in this context, would mean that the government has to spend, or it is a kind of a can come in the domain of fiscal policy, and then it can be linked to outcome in terms of growth in 2047, etc. In that context, I raised it. Thank you so much.
I think it should be seriously considered because innovation and R&D are important for 2047.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening. So, Jobin, my name is Vipasha. I'm a PhD scholar here. But I have a question posed by Jobin, my fellow PhD scholar. I will now read it out. How can we say that Kerala is exporting human capital? Migration is not driven by state involvement, but rather by the lack of incentives to stay here. I think most highly skilled second-generation migrants did not study in government schools. They attended private schools. Thank
you. I think, Joby, you asked a very interesting question, I must tell you. It's a very interesting question. More skilled, that has to be empirically proven. I think Aguila is here. Is Aguila here to give some insight on that? That is your hunch. It's a hypothesis. I don't think that all those who are from even in the private schools, this is mostly private aided schools. Private aided schools, Sarkar gives salary. Okay. Don't think that, when did the private second generation started this? All these private institutions came only last 5 years. 10 years, maybe. Yeah. So I would say that it's a good hypothesis. It can be explored. And you say that a lack of domestic incentives, you said, I lack of opportunities. I perfectly agree with you. But unfortunately, our discussion here is not on endogenous factors, exogenous factors. When we'll quarrel on that later. Why we didn't do well. See, that is the Finance Commission, we don't have to tell what is our domestic problem, okay? This is, that will speak in different occasion. But your questions are very good.
Okay, any other questions? Any other observations?
You have to go at 5 o'clock.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
I'll stay another 10 minutes, no problem.
Hello, good afternoon, sir. Am I audible to you?
Yes, please.
Please.
Who's speaking?
Hello, am I audible to you, sir?
Little allowed, please.
Hello, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Shanu, okay, we are hearing.
Yes. Sir, very nice presentation, sir. I have one doubt, sir. Sir, in your presentation, you mentioned everybody is better off except the government. Okay, so that statement is very nice. But if you are looking into the trajectory of state financing in Kerala, especially Kerala is always looking into tax as their major source of income. There is no employment opportunity or investment opportunities compared to other states, especially like Karnataka or some other states in India. There are a lot of, especially private sector investment opportunities are there. But that part still now Kerala is lagging. Sir, what's your opinion regarding this? Kerala government is worse. So could you please substantiate, sir, in this?
I think, Joseph, this is basically not related to 16th Finance Commission.
We have to tell it.
Because we are here
No.
only to look
No.
at the arguments that the state government has to put forward to
Okay, sir.
strengthen their case
Yeah.
for getting more from the Finance Commission.
But then for your side, we are on the same boat. We know that a lot of internal problems at home, which we will discuss not with the Finance Committee.
Let there be
we'll talk
more
about-
discussions.
Yeah, that we'll discuss later.
This is
But
very important.
Okay.
we agree with you. There are a lot of problems here. Yes, we know it, but that is not the forum to. As I said, we'll take only exogenous factors, not endogenous. Endogenous factors we are not taking here.
Oh, sure, sir. Understood.
Yeah, but you made a valid point, very interesting point. But unfortunately, another seminar will take it upon that.
Okay.
Thank
A
you.
whole seminar for a
On-
whole day
Yeah.
on the point you raised.
But your
Any other
questions
point
are
relating to the points state government should make before the 16th Finance Commission? Any changes in approach that we need to make? If there is any point, we can take it up now. I don't hear anything.
Misconception that some growers were is talking about. Okay, very important information. Oh, there's quite a lot of questions in the chat box. Okay.
Okay,
Questions, comments, I will read it. Not many, but if you, I read them. Are there studies which link R&D expenditure and technology progress? Oh, sorry. Okay, that is Professor Pushpa's question already raised, which will. Now, Shaila Hamid to everyone, interesting remarks.
No, since
it's okay.
question about
Hmm.
R&D was mentioned.
Yeah, you also, please.
Let me also tell you that most of the R&D expenditure, including in China, has come from the private sector, not from the public sector.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, in India, even if you are putting in 0.6%, most of it is coming from the public sector. There are limitations there.
Yes.
So we have to find methods of encouraging the private sector to invest more into R&D. I don't think government will be able to invest up to 2.5% or so in R&D, simply because you don't have the resources and you have multiple needs.
Yeah, you're right. There is a remark from Santosh Varghese. There is a general misconception that macroeconomic stabilization is a fiscal function of the union government alone. Is it a misconception? That
Can I
may be
answer that?
economies which have less diversity or culturally homogeneous.
Can I answer that?
Pardon?
Can I answer that?
Okay, please.
I think the young scholar is advised to read the second chapter of Fiscal Federalism book by Valley Oates and the whole lot of work which which is Musgrave did. And this is the basic principle of, first generation theories of fiscal federalism. And let me clarify that macroeconomic stabilization is not exclusively a union function, but it is a predominantly a union function. It does not mean that there is no scope for some degree of price stabilization. But when you have, but at the same time, predominant responsibility for the price stabilization in the country and balance of payments in the country, because if you go on borrowing from abroad, then there are issues of that nature. Predominant responsibility is that of the center. In fact, predominant responsibility for redistribution is also that of the center. That is because if you allow the states to do the redistribution, no state would like to have a poor people around. They would only give incentive to the rich people to be there. And that is the reason why it's only in the allocative function that there is a predominant responsibility for the subnational governments. And in macroeconomic stabilization and redistribution, the predominant responsibility, let me again say predominant responsibility is that of, it's an economic necessity. Predominant responsibility for stabilization and redistribution is that of the union government. So therefore, overall borrowings in the country, overall the money supply in the country, the extent of stabilization that you need to do on the price level, all these have to be determined at the central level. You can have some employment policies, you can have some policies for local price stabilization, but the predominant responsibility still. So I would advise the young lady to look at the fiscal federalism. In fact, there is a paper in the Canadian Journal of Economics by Value Oates, my good guru, and obviously there is a very detailed analysis of this.
Thank you, sir. I think that was not a lady. That is the only mistake.
I'm sorry.
He's a gentleman. Sandosh, am I right?
I'm sorry. My apologies.
No. This is a light vein. Please take.
Sir. Sorry, myself is Santosh Varghese, but I am quite familiar with the article of Wallace Oates. Wallace Oates do refer that Musgrave argues that the macroeconomic stabilization is the function of union government. But
not entirely. It's a predominant responsibility.
It's a predominant now it's clear. Now it's clear. Now it's clear, but it means that subnational states also has the responsibility of undertaking macroeconomic stabilization. That's my point.
Yeah,
that's my point. That's my point.
But then
that's my point.
When you are putting the argument here, when you are talking about the overall debt ceiling and things like that, therefore, one hand, as far as the states are concerned, the volume of interest that they pay is a much more biting factor than the burden of loans.
That I agree, sir. My only point of difference is that states also do have to undertake macroeconomic stabilization. That alone is my argument. That's all, sir. I agree with you on other counts.
There is a chairperson sitting here. He will say finally.
Okay, so we'll go on to the next question if there is any other question.
Sir, right now.
You, Anita.
So first of all, sir, congrats for the well-articulated piece. I think you made the case, Kerala's case very well. You presented. But one point I would like to add is regarding the decentralization spending of Kerala. That needs a little more attention because of that, we alleviated poverty, and those things has to be strengthened and it has to be included. And another point is that you said that we need revenue deficit grant, but at the same time we are arguing that borrowing flexibility, and also saying that the whatever borrowing we are making for investment, but if there is revenue deficit, you cannot invest fully. This is a dichotomy. If there is a revenue deficit, this borrowing money we are using for adjusting the revenue deficit. So revenue deficit and fiscal deficit, flexibility, that whatever borrowing to investment would not happen. So first Yeah, that should be the premise. The revenue deficit, then non-revenue has to be increased. Then, we cannot argue for revenue deficit grant. If the revenue deficit is zero, there is no question of revenue deficit grant. That issue is there. Sir, Mike, sir.
I think a very interesting point. Very interesting point. Yeah. How can you argue that you need revenue deficit grant because point number one. Secondly, we agreed to be revenue deficit zero. Then we need freedom for investment to the level which we want. Now the point is that this revenue deficit grant is to be given because there's some difference, because we are like this juncture in the history wherein we are articulating an altogether new vision which was never ever heard of. When you start a shop, for example, there will be some backlogs because we have already contributed to the development of other states. We already contributed enormously to, for example, unions current account balance and foreign exchange reserve. And when you are talking about the fact that your remittance people are spending, that spending can get taxed. You should not forget the fact that out of our credit deposit ratio, maybe around something like 30 to 40,000 crore every year goes to other states by way of investment, which we are not added. So what I'm trying to say that there are certain legacy problems to be corrected. There are already some committed expenditure that is to be corrected. Don't think that tomorrow everything will be on clean slate. We are actually talking not about tomorrow India becoming a developed economy. We are thinking about India becoming a developed economy by 2047. There should be a strategy and we have to articulate the way forward in which maybe we need revenue deficit for another 5 more years. After that, we'll be fine. So don't think that tomorrow everything will be clean.
Joseph, Joseph, the simple answer to that question, the question is that you do need revenue deficit grant because you don't want to spend borrowed money to meet revenue expenditure.
Wonderful. That's right.
Okay. You need revenue deficit grant because we want to clean up the revenue deficit through the grant system so that the entire borrowed money goes into investment.
That's
the simple thing that you have to say.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's a very pragmatic answer. No need to do this much. Okay. Kiran, you want to know?
I have a couple of points to raise. One is, since your presentation started with making a case for Finance Commission to revisit on the basic purpose of what Finance Commission is supposed to do, it is not same as what it was during the first Finance Commission. Then the first question to ask is how far the Finance Commission has been accomplishing its role. I mean, like all the recommendations that the commissions have been giving over the time, have they really helped in the goal that was prescribed? How far the provision of basic public goods have how far that has been accomplished, and if that has not accomplished, should we make a case? I have not finished yet.
Okay. One.
Then what is the other case that you assign Finance Commission for the broader vision that India is embarking? And that rationalization, I think, has to come a little more. And the second thing is about your concern with human capital. As you know, I would have some differences with it. I think Professor Rao has already highlighted that there's a kind of a contradiction that you're making. If you are saying that Kerala is contributing the highest proportion of remittances in India, even if I'm taking it at face value, but actually it's Maharashtra that contributes the highest remittances. But let that be as it is. Then Professor Rao is already saying that, okay, your remittances are getting you better income. Then why are we saying that remittance argument can fall apart? So should we then still focus on what Kerala is contributing? Then related point is that, should we be really worried about what are we contributing for the national development and why are we not getting? Sure.
to be worried at all.
Like you are saying that Kerala is contributing much higher for the national vision as compared to other states.
I know
So
that
that
we didn't say other states. We are contributing. Other states, they have to. That's an empirical question. Each one should work out and find out. We have to have an index for each state. That's Niti Ayog's job. I'm putting it.
yeah,
go ahead.
should it be should it be seen that way, that okay, states that are relatively contributing more should be rewarded? Should that be the part of the Finance Commission's recommendations? These are the questions that I want to
Okay. Let me just. This point number one is okay. How far they have been. This is a pragmatic paper in which I have had a sentence saying that okay, to a great extent, finance commissions have been able to co-evolve. Because, for example, when you start a finance commission, only income tax was devolved. But 10th Finance Commission took a decision as to, for example, all the taxes should be devolved. That's a major change. That means they have been over time responsive and co-evolving to the context, the demands of this. They have been. So I think when a commission comes, say that okay, these institutions to put. My job is not to say the criticism at that. This note paper, I don't want to say that. They have said we have a history of co-evolving. So better you do it. You will do it. I'm optimistic. That's why my side will be more diplomatic there. Point number one. At least for this paper, for a government and I write. Second thing is now. But the human capital, when you talk about this note, Kerala is not the thing. Rajan's number, because it is. I have to quote gift study. You show me the number of Maharashtra, some other study, then I'll believe that. Then I'll challenge Rajan on that. Honors go to our honorary fellow. Now the point here is, you will ask the question saying that, look, you get money, state government. Look at the process like that. I'm reminding you to take the multiplier effect in the microeconomics class that you studied in macroeconomics class. You studied in degree. When other states, suppose I produce machinery. The moment machinery goes out of my factory, I get the tax. Okay? And that machinery using people will generate income, second effect. When those who are working in that factory, they will get income. That's a derived effect, comes like that. Similarly, when my human capital is produced and goes out of the state, I don't get anything. When I invested heavily by borrowing, I means the government of Kerala has invested heavily by borrowing. When 1,000 master's degree is produced in the state, I don't get anything. When they go, they get income. That income, that they decide how much has to come to the consumption. Then they decide how much tax should come to me. That is a very derived effect. That is very different from 18% of the tax on a machinery produced by the state, by a company, directly coming into state's coffers. That's why I use the word direct. Very consciously, I'm aware of that. I directly use that term. There is no direct contribution, unlike in the case of type 1 states. The word was consciously used for direct. Now the point is that more rewarded, and this is not parochial way of saying that. I said that they should be rewarded. At least don't penalize them. That's what I say. I wanted a strategy of working on two-leg strategy of if you are really committed towards beyond slogan to 2047, if you focus on you are only backward and okay, I'm still concerned about these things, you will not reach there, my dear. If you want to reach, you should focus on who are the contributing people, reward them. Then also you should think in terms of what are the who are lagging behind. That is what you need to have a strategy of working on two legs. That's what I'm not against inequality. I'm for. I'm not going to leave the poor states, Bihar and all. No, they should be handholded. But then don't think of all the time carrots. That's what Professor. This is what esteemed chairman was also saying. You should also be seeing what is happening to the money which is coming to the states. You should have some assessment. Central government is coming. So central government money is coming. You do whichever way you want. That is not the case. You should have some system of evaluating what the hell, what happened to the money which has gone, what has been capacity which is building. That is what I said. You should have a system of carrot and stick rather than only carrots. Has any question being asked whether 18% of the money is going to a particular state? And I don't want to use any state's name. So there should be a system of reviewing the system. That is precisely what I mean, co-evolution of the institutions to the context.
Joseph, I have a point to make in this. I think the young man has a lot of important point to make. Now, let me say this. See, the first basic point of fiscal federalism is to allow the subnational government the choice of the development strategy. And obviously, Kerala decided, Kerala chose to focus more on human development as compared to Gujarat, which basically focused on, basically the physical infrastructure. Now, you can argue saying that because of this deliberate choice, we should not be penalized, and therefore the revenue deficit should not be, so should be recognized. That is a different thing from saying, I mean, that's one part of it. But once you say that, the second order effect, third order effect, I mean, it is a deliberate choice that we have made in the development strategy. And obviously, for that particular purpose, you should not be penalized. That's fine. But to say that, I mean, no, sort of you did it in spite of the fact that you are not able to provide the employment, downstream employment. So they had to go out. It was not that it's their choice that they wanted to go out. They had no other way but to go out. Okay. Now, when you have that, I mean, when you have that sort of a situation, I mean, you can't be saying that this is the, sort of, I have the second order effect and third order effect. But then you are getting more money at a later stage. After all, this has been going on for a long time. And, sort of, so obviously you will be getting a lot more of, sort of this thing. Your focus will have to be on, as I said, rather than income, your focus will have to be saying that income is not this thing. And again, when you are talking about, you did talk about whether the Finance Commission have fulfilled the goal. First, you define the goal. You have not defined the goal, and still you want to go about this thing. What is the objective of a Finance Commission transfer? Objective of the Finance Commission transfer is to enable the state to provide comparable levels of services at comparable tax effort. Okay. So this is so I think you'll have to be a little careful about this material, non-material thing. Yeah. Sorry, I think.
Hey, no. It's all good.
I think I'll have to go. I have a.
Thank you very much, sir. I know that you left your office early to join for the meeting. I know all that. Thank you very much.
Let Anita also make a last point.
Yes,
and
sir.
we'll close it.
But sir, the worrying thing is Kerala share is continuously declining. So if it is declining again in the 16th Finance Commission, what is our future? It is from 3.725 to 1.92 continuously for. That is our worry. How we will address that?
I think she has raised a very critical point, and that's what we should really be focusing on. You see, this whole exercises that we have been doing, number of meetings have been held here, and at the same time, parallel work is taking place in the government. Now, that is about finding certain points, strengthening Kerala's claim. It is not on any other issue. It is how to strengthen Kerala. So what you need to do is, a lot of points have already been raised by now write down 1, 2, 3, 4. The government has to be involved because the government is going to present. Neither Joseph nor any of us will be around there. So, I mean, he may be around, I don't know, but the fact is, government has to be involved. You write down all the points that we can possibly raise. And then let us have a discussion like this with some people where the others can raise contrary points, and you can then finalize, then you can decide how to answer it. That will give the kind of strategy that is required. The basic issue is how to get more for Kerala. That's the only issue. There's no other issue.
But
Here.
one question my last lady, because you can't say no to government.
Yes.
Sir, actually, like I was thinking to ask what, Professor Govinda Rao just mentioned. I just remember what, Thomas Isaac has, mentioned in our last seminar on 16th Finance Commission, exactly on the diverse needs of the states and, it ranges from capital infrastructure for some states and human development for some other states. So my question is like, I understand that,
our share has been decreasing as Kerala is concerned, but we also need to take the other states also, because we are targeting to Vision India 2047 and Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. So other states development in general in terms of human development is very, very crucial. So we should have this categorization when 16th Finance Commission, their share is tax devolution and grants in aid is concerned. And more important, as Saras also mentioned, the CSS. I think more flexibility should be there in the CSS, because the states' needs are diverse. So this categorization and the need of the states can be addressed not only from the devolution of the tax, but it should also from the grants in aid and the CSS. I think the larger question has to be, contextualized. Yeah. Thank you.
No, I think about CSS, that point has been made earlier also. It's very important. You're right. No, but I think we need to zero in on what points we are going to make. Let's not go all over the world. Let's just zero in on a few points, which Kerala has to make, and let the government be involved in that, because they are going to present. We are not going to present. We are only a kind of a second line that is preparing some material, hoping they will want it. They have to do it. If they are interested, their officers or whoever is going to present before the Finance Commission should be sitting here and should be listening. And there should be people on the other side questioning. You should talk like the Finance Commission. Each point you raise against what the person here is speaking, then he will be better prepared. So I think that should be the kind of exercise we should do. So thank you very much, all of you, for all particularly Professor Govind Rao. He has contributed very heavily, as he always does, to all these meetings. And thank you for the questions that you've raised. And I think many more issues. I think we have come to the end of the
Gangadharan
road.
Mash ഒന്നും മിണ്ടുന്നില്ലല്ലോ. Gangadharan Mashe? Professor Gangadharan is there. I think, thank you
Okay,
for
I think
joining.
Professor Gangadharan can speak to you
Later
on.
right.
Huh?
Yeah.
So let us now conclude this meeting.
Right. I think,
I will leave this idea with
right.
Professor Joseph. Let him talk to his minister and try to get them prepared for the final confrontation with the Finance Commissioner. Thank you.
I think there's no formal vote of thanks here. These people have stopped it. They have stopped it, this thing, the coordinators, I think, but then everything said and done for me. It was a wonderful evening. Wonderful, I think. I'm thinking about it quite some time. And all of you joined, particularly those who have joined offline. They are the important people. Sorry, people who joined online. They are the important people. We thank, I noted the presence of our late Ongis now, Professor Gangadharan is there. All of them, I don't want to use any name of thank. You are always encouraging to us.
Professor Gangadharan wants to raise a point. He's welcome even now.
Yeah. No, I think not. Yeah, I
No?
think it's fine. No.
Fine.
Okay. Professor Govind Rao actually had to leave his office early to come for this meeting. I think I'm very thankful to him. He's always very encouraging and very critical. See, look at the way in which he put nice points, the way in which how we should argue. And I think, sir, your idea of we should put down what, then we should see the counterpoints. We should know, otherwise we should not be caught on the dark when they come what they are. That's a strategy. Yeah.
You people
counter it.
should be countering it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Very good. I think this is the way this is the preparation. And this is the WTO, the negotiations which they do. I mean, as an ambassador of Indian ambassador WTO, I'm sure you'd have practiced. Thank you very, I think you were sitting for a long time, 2 hours. Thank you very much. And to all of you on my side, a big hand.